The storm hit faster than Alex Rivera expected. Sheets of icy rain hammered the windshield of her Chevy as she climbed the narrow mountain road toward Blackwater Ridge, a Colorado town so small it barely even appeared on state maps. Her GPS flickered, losing signal every few minutes, but Alex kept her foot on the gas. She didn't have much of a choice. Her new job started tomorrow morning. Blackwater Ridge had hired her as a forensic photographer after the last one retired suddenly. That choice of words bothered her. It felt a little too neat, but a job was a job, and she desperately needed the money. As she drove higher, the trees grew denser, crowding the road. Tall, twisted pines leaned over the asphalt like skeletal sentinels, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. Fog, thick and milky white, slithered between their trunks, making the entire forest look like it was alive and breathing. Her headlights cut through the gloom, catching shadows that seemed to dart and move just at the edge of her vision. She told herself it was just the storm, just the wind playing tricks on her eyes. A sign flashed past, weathered and barely readable in a downpour, "Welcome to Blackwater Ridge." Just then, a brilliant fork of lightning split the sky, illuminating the entire landscape for a split second. And in that blinding flash, she saw it. A figure, standing on the side of the road, not 10 feet from her car. It was a tall, impossibly thin black silhouette, perfectly motionless, facing her directly. Alex screamed and slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched on the wet pavement as the car skidded sideways, its headlights swinging wildly across the trees. When she finally wrestled the car to a stop, she looked back. The figure was gone, vanished. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She wiped her sweaty palms on her jeans and forced herself to take a deep, ragged breath. "Just a shadow," she whispered to the empty car. "Just the storm." But her voice trembled, and she didn't believe her own words. For the rest of the drive into town, her eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that dark shape reappear in the seat behind her. Blackwater Ridge looked frozen in time, like a forgotten photograph from 100 years ago. The streets were completely empty, slick with rain. Old wooden buildings with faded paint leaned over cracked sidewalks, their windows dark and vacant. A single streetlight flickered erratically, casting long dancing shadows as if it was struggling to stay alive against the encroaching darkness. Alex pulled up to the Cedar Pines Inn, a small 2-story lodge with peeling paint and windows so dusty they looked opaque. The moment she stepped inside, the lobby air hit her. It smelled of old pine wood, damp earth, and something else. Something faintly metallic, like old blood. A man emerged from the shadows behind the check-in counter. He was wiry and old, with sunken eyes and a face so lined with stress it looked like a roadmap of a difficult life. "You must be Rivera," he rasped, his voice like gravel. "The new photographer." Alex was taken aback. "How did you know? You're the only newcomer this month," he said flatly. "And this town, it don't get newcomers." He slid a tarnished brass room key across the counter. His tone wasn't just unfriendly. It held an unspoken warning, a clear message that she wasn't want to hear. Alex cleared her throat, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "Is something wrong?" The old man hesitated. His gaze shifted nervously toward the large window that faced the dark churning woods outside. "Blackwater Ridge has rules," he said finally, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You don't go out after midnight. You don't walk near the tree line. And if you see shadows moving where they shouldn't..." He leaned closer, his stale breath washing over her. "You look the other way." A cold dread crawled up her neck. Before she could ask what he meant, another voice cut through the tense silence. "Don't scare her, Bill." A woman in a sheriff's uniform was descending the creaky wooden stairs. She was about Alex's age, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and a weary, exhausted look in her eyes. "I'm Sheriff Lisa Crane," she said, extending a hand. "You'll be working with my department starting tomorrow." Her handshake was firm, professional, but her eyes told a different story. They were full of a deep bone-weary fatigue that had nothing to do with a long shift. "We had an incident last night," the sheriff said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "A hiker went missing near the North Trail." "You'll be part of the documentation team in the morning," Alex nodded, her mind racing. "Of course." Sheriff Crane hesitated, then lowered her voice even further, leaning in so the clerk couldn't hear. "And if you hear anything strange tonight, just ignore it. The wind gets weird in these mountains. It plays tricks." The clerk, Bill, shot the sheriff a sharp warning look from behind the counter. Alex felt a sudden overwhelming urge to ask more questions, to demand what was really going on. But something in their guarded expressions told her that no one here liked questions. And a deeper, more primal instinct told her something else, that she was being watched. Alex's room on the second floor was small but clean. A single dim lamp glowed on the nightstand, casting a weak yellow circle of light. Outside, the storm raged with renewed fury, the wind howling and clawing at the walls, as if trying to break in. She began to unpack her camera equipment, methodically checking lenses and charging batteries. The familiar routine of work always calmed her nerves, grounding her in a world of logic and procedure. It was around 11:45 p.m. when the power flickered. The lamp buzzed, dimmed until it was barely aglow, and then steadied. And that's when she heard it. A knock. Slow, heavy, deliberate. It was a solid thudding sound that vibrated through the old wooden structure. Alex froze, every muscle in her body tensing. Another knock, louder this time, and closer. It wasn't at her door, it was coming from her window. Her room was on the second floor. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead. She swallowed hard, her mouth suddenly dry, and took a hesitant step toward the heavy curtains. Another knock, this time it was 3 distinct taps, rhythmic and sharp, like someone sending a signal. Her breath hitched in her throat. Then, a whisper seemed to slide through the room, coiling in the air around her. "Alex." Her blood ran cold. It was impossible. No one here knew her well enough to whisper her name like that. Acting on pure instinct, she grabbed her camera. When she was afraid, she took pictures. It was a deeply ingrained habit from her years working crime scenes, a way to create distance, to turn terror into data. Her hand shook uncontrollably as she reached for the curtain. With a sharp tug, she pulled it back and, in the same motion, raised her camera and snapped a photo. The powerful flash erupted, lighting up the darkness outside for a blinding fraction of a second. And in that moment of stark, artificial light, she saw it, a face, pressed against the glass from the outside. The skin was a sickly mottled gray, stretched tight over a skull-like structure. The eyes were hollow black pits of nothingness. And the mouth was stretched too wide in a silent, horrifying grin. She stumbled backward, a scream caught in her throat, her heart thundering against her ribs. The face vanished instantly, as if it had been a phantom image burned onto her retina by the flash, as if it had never been there at all. The storm roared louder, and the room felt degrees colder. With trembling fingers, Alex looked down at the digital screen on the back of her camera to see the photo she had just taken. But the screen showed nothing, just darkness. Black rain-streaked glass reflecting the dim light of her room. There was no face, no figure, nothing. She backed away toward the bed, her breath coming in ragged, shallow gasps. Something was out there. Something real. Something the sheriff and the old clerk didn't want to talk about. As she frantically crawled beneath the thin blanket, pulling it up to her chin, the power in the room flickered again. Just before the lamp went out completely, plunging the room into absolute darkness, she heard one final whisper. It was soft, broken, and impossibly close, as if someone was leaning right over her, their lips next to her ear. "Don't look at them." Then, the darkness swallowed everything. The storm hit faster than Alex expected, hammering her windshield as she climbed the mountain road toward Blackwater Ridge. The GPS flickered, losing signal. Her new job as a forensic photographer started tomorrow, replacing someone who retired suddenly. The town sign felt wrong. a place to come home to. Lightning flashed, and she saw a tall black silhouette on the side of the road. She slammed on the brakes, but when she looked again, it was gone. In town, the inn clerk gave her a key and a warning. Blackwater Ridge has rules. Don't go out after midnight. And if you see shadows moving where they shouldn't, you look the other way. Sheriff Crane was waiting, confirming a hiker went missing. She added her own advice. If you hear anything strange tonight, just ignore it. That night, in her room, a slow, heavy knock came from her second-story window. Then a whisper, "Alex."